Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty end with marginal losses after a range-bound session. Midcaps bucked the trend. The Nifty Bank ending in the green. China reports a worse than expected drop in imports and exports in July points to subdued global demand and a slump in China's domestic economy. Exports plunged by 14.5% on a yearly basis, the worst since the pandemic. Maruti Suzuki approves the issuance of shares on a preferential basis to Suzuki Motor Corp to acquire a 100% stake in the Gujarat plant. Maruti's chairman R.C. Bhargav says Suzuki's shareholding is likely to increase and hit more than 58%. The government's bad bank sees a slow start with significant haircuts. The SBI-managed National Asset Reconstruction Company purchased less than 10% of bad loans in the last 2 years against a government-prescribed target of 2 lakh crore rupees. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. SoftBank reports a surprise loss of over $3 billion for the third quarter. This even as the company's Vision Fund is back in the black after posting losses for the last 5 quarters. Sources say that Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma's agreement with Antfin is probably India's biggest buy now, pay later deal with no fixed returns committed to the Chinese company. Sources add the payment for the long committed optionally convertible debentures will run into many years. That's another exclusive. The LokSabha begins to debate the no-confidence motion moved by opposition parties. Congress MP Gaurav Gogoi says the opposition was compelled to take the step to end Prime Minister Modi's silence on the ethnic violence in Manipur. BJP's Nishikant Dubey attacks the Congress for bringing in the motion. Parliamentary panel calls for a review of post-retirement postings of judges to ensure impartiality. Also calls for more regional benches of the Supreme Court, saying the apex court is now, and I quote, very Delhi-centric. The union government bars military drone makers from using components made in China. Reuters reports the government has concerns over security vulnerabilities. Shares of drone maker Idea Ford's decline in trade ahead of its earnings. All of that and more coming up for you, but let's start with the day's trading action where the Nifty and the Sensex ended with minor cuts. So let's go across to the wall now. The Nifty closing about 27 points lower. The Sensex was down just over 100 points. The Nifty Bank, though, closing in the green, up 126 points. And the Nifty Midcap also bucking the trend today, up about 88 points. So that was the story as far as our broader markets were concerned. Let's go across to Prashant now. He is standing by to take us through the market action. Prashant, a relatively quiet session.
Well, it was quiet and sideways for most of the session, and that's how we ended. No real fireworks even in the last 30 minutes of trade. No 3 p.m. move as we've gotten used to. The change will come up on your screen on the Nifty. The Bank Nifty, a little better. I mean, the Bank Nifty did better than the Nifty. It was opposite of what we saw yesterday, where the Nifty did well and the Bank Nifty sulked. Mid-caps and small caps, a steady 0.25% gain higher. I'll get to the broader markets and stocks which did well there, but I have to say that list of stocks which went up on volumes exceeds the list of stocks which went down on volumes, even though overall NSE market breadth was about 1:1. But let's start with the Nifty, the large caps. SBI Life, Hero and Cipla were the gainers. On the losing side, you had names like Adani Enterprises, Power Grid and Hindalco, which were under pressure. Broader markets now, that's where the action has been once again. So these pharma names, Gland, Kaplan, consumer name like Imami, financials like Indian Bank, Manappuram, Satin Credit Care, names like Angel One, rate gain at one point was up 15. It ended up about 6 or 7%. These power smaller companies, Skipper, Genus Power, Inox Wind. Then you had industrial names like Praj, ITD Cementation, auto ancillary name like Talbros Automobile, 16% move, big one. Sangvi Movers continues its run up, very strong numbers recently, and Serra Sanitary Ware as well. There were cuts coming through as well. Names like Zomato and PB Fintech, which have done well recently, pulled back. There was Max Healthcare reacting to results on the downside. Graphite India, HBL Power, Paras Defense, Intellect Design, Med Plus, Borosil Renewables, amongst many others. So that's the broader market action for you. As I said in the headline indices, quiet day. All eyes will now be on the US session, US market session. Thursday, not tomorrow, will be the more important day because you get the RBI decision that day during our sort of trading hours, and then later in the evening you get the US CPI. In a way, markets, not just here, globally, a bit on the hold. Back to you.
Yes, it is going to be big for the macros, won't it, Prashant? Many thanks for joining us. And staying with macros, China's worse than expected trade data points towards a subdued global demand as well as a slump in demand internally. Now, China has reported a decline of nearly 15% in its July exports, and this marks the third straight month of a fall and is the biggest drop in the last 3 years since the COVID-19 pandemic. Similarly, imports for the month of July dropped by 12% in US dollar terms. Now, Chinese imports of crude oil fell over 20% and imports of integrated circuits declined nearly 17%. Juliana Teitelbaum joins us now with more. Juliana, joining us, that is the macro story coming in from China, but the big earnings. SoftBank reporting a surprise loss of over $3 billion in the June quarter, and this is despite the company's tech-focused Vision Fund posting an investment gain for the first time in 5 quarters. Now, the company has attributed the loss to unrealized losses in some of its key investments, and that include China's Alibaba. Back home, Hindalco reporting a mixed bag in Q1, net profit and revenue ahead of expectations, while margins missed the mark. The company's net profit dipped nearly 60%, while revenues up marginally on a year-on-year basis. Moving on to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive, sources tell us that the Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma's agreement with AntFin is probably India's biggest buy now, pay later deal, with no fixed returns committed to the Chinese company. Sources also tell us that the payment for the long-committed optionally convertible debentures will run into many, many years. Abhishek joins us now with more. Abhishek, important clarification there that we've managed to get.
Well, as we all know that, AntFin's part of equity will be converted into optional convertible debentures as per the agreement that they have entered with Vijay Shekhar Sharma's offshore entity. Now, sources do tell us that, there is no assured return guarantee to AntFin either in the past or, part of the OCD, that is optional convertible debentures agreement. There is no fixed return that's been committed to AntFin. This is probably India's biggest buy now, pay later kind of a deal. So it will be wrong to say that, there is no cash outgo. There is equity transfer, so payment will have to be made on a future date. So there is long committed OCDs running into many, many years, and this will bring AntFin into shooting distance of going below the 10% level, that is about 13.5% post this deal, but nothing on the annual or near term that it will go below 10%. Back to you.
All right, Abhishek, many thanks for joining us. Now, Maruti Suzuki has approved the issuance of shares on a preferential basis to Suzuki Motor Corp to acquire a 100% stake in the Gujarat plant. Maruti's chairman, R.C. Bhargav, says Suzuki's shareholding is likely to increase by just under 2%. As things currently stand, Suzuki owns 56.5% stake in Maruti Suzuki. After the issuance of preferential shares, Suzuki's stake will rise to 58.3%. India's largest two-wheeler maker Hero Moto has received over 25,000 bookings for the world's cheapest Harley-Davidson motorcycle. This according to the company. It says that 65% of the bookings for the X440 were of the motorcycle's top-end variant. The company will begin production of the X440 in September and begin deliveries from October. Shares of Hero Moto closing higher in trade today. Another exclusive this evening. It has turned out to be a slow start for the government's bad bank with some significant haircuts. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 that State Bank of India's managed National Asset Reconstruction Company has purchased less than 10% of the bad loans in the last 2 years against the government's prescribed target of 2 lakh crore rupees. Sapna joins us now with the details. Sapna, slow start. Where exactly are things at as far as the bad bank is concerned?
Well, the progress of NARCL in terms of acquisition of bad loans from banks is not looking very positive. In the last 2 odd years since the inception of NARCL, it has acquired somewhere around 18,000 crore worth of NPAs against a target set by the government of 2 lakh crores worth of NPA acquisition, and that too by FY22 end. We are already into FY24, so that is one indicator of the slow progress of NARCL. The second, of course, is against the NPA value of 18,000 crores. The purchase value by NARCL has been pegged at 45,100 crores. So there is a 75% odd haircut for banks, so to speak. Third, of course, since the size of the MPA acquisition is not much and not many accounts acquired, just 7 odd accounts have been acquired by NARCL so far. Hence, the utilization of government guarantees is also very slow. Against a budget outlay of 30,600 odd crores, only 35 odd 100 crores worth of government guarantees have been utilized. And the government guarantees, mind you, are available only for 5 years, out of which 2 years are already over. Plus, if you look at the haircut size, that's also very sizable. Maybe, IBC is a better option. That could be one of the areas of concern. And most important, the tardy pace of acquisition by NARCL. I think there is already pressure from the government for them to expedite this process. Going forward, of course, they plan to acquire, NARCL plans to acquire 33 more NP accounts worth 1.71 lakh odd crores. So the major part of the acquisition of NPs alone still remains. And then after that will follow the resolution part, which is also something that we'll have to track.
Sapna, many thanks for joining us. Moving on, India has decided to bar domestic manufacturers from using Chinese components in military drones, citing security concerns. Now, this according to a Reuters report. It says the decision was taken after 2 rounds of discussions with drone developers. The report also added that India's defense forces fear intelligence gathering could be compromised by the use of components that are made in China. Now, the government's move to restrict the import of laptops, tablets and personal computers has cheered domestic manufacturers. Atul Lal of Dixon Technologies is of the firm view that these curbs are a positive step in supporting electronic manufacturing. Lauding the government for its decision, Lal said Indian domestic industry will take 6 to 8 months to ramp up production and meet demand. Take a look.
Specifically responding to the laptop and the IT products being covered now under licensing. So there are various viewpoints to it. But from the manufacturing industry, we are of a firm view that this again is a positive step. Please appreciate the Indian domestic industry, manufacturing industry, will take just 6 to 8 months to ramp up the production. And in the intervening period, the government is coming up with the requisite policy interventions to ensure that demand is met, either through imports or enhancing local production. Please be rest assured, the industry has adequate bandwidth.
Well, that is Dixon Technologies, one of the companies that is likely to be a beneficiary of the import restrictions on laptops, personal computers, etc. Up next, the LokSabha begins to debate the no-confidence motion moved by opposition parties. That and more when we return. Well, the much-anticipated debate on the no-trust motion against the BJP government started today with heated exchanges between the Treasury and the opposition benches. Congress leader Gaurav Gogoi opened the debate, urging the Prime Minister to come to the House and address the Manipur issue. BJP lawmaker Nishikant Dubey said the debate was not about expressing distrust in the government, but about taking stock of the trust factor within the opposition. Pinaki Mishra, the lawmaker from the Biju Janata Dal, which is neither a part of the NDA or the India Alliance, said his party would not support the motion. However, he urged the government to use its overwhelming majority in Parliament to ensure that the much-awaited women's reservation bill becomes a reality.
ये नौबत आनी पड़ी कि हम अविश्वास प्रस्ताव के द्वारा प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी का मौन व्रत हम तोड़ना चाहते हैं। जो सरकार एक इंडिया की बात करती है, आज उन्होंने 2 मणिपुर आपने बना दिए हैं।
प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं कि ये अविश्वास प्रस्ताव नहीं है, ये अपोजिशन में विश्वास प्रस्ताव है कि कौन अपोजिशन में कौन किसके साथ है। महाभारत का एक बड़ा कहानी है सर कि द्रौपदी का चीरहरण हो रहा था और पूरे चाहे कौरव पक्ष के लोग हों चाहे पांडव पक्ष के लोग हों, वो सभी जो है चीरहरण को देख रहे थे। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जब परिवारवाद की बात करते हैं ना, तो इनको लगता है कि परिवार की बात करते हैं।
Now I am supporting the no confidence motion means because we want to kill the evils. Prime Minister has been elected member of Parliament and nation's Prime Minister to attend the Parliament only. He has not come so far. That is why there is no other way to bring the Prime Minister to this House.
I have nothing personal against Mr. Modi. But as Brutus said in Julius Caesar, not that I love Modi less, but that I love India more. If anybody loves India, they will oppose Modi.
I'd like to quote Julius Caesar, just since Professor Roy talked about it. It's only hubris if I fail. In the epic poem Paradise Lost by John Milton, the character of the Satan displays hubris when he attempts to rebel against God's rule in heaven, and when he eventually declares that it's better to reign in hell than serve in heaven.
The way forward for women's empowerment is again what Mr. Naveen Patnaik has been repeatedly requesting the central government to bring in the Women's Reservation Bill. And I think that is one area where the central government will be seriously remiss if in the 17th Lok Sabha they don't do it, because there is a full majority. In fact, there is near unanimity. Today, all shades of political opinion in this House and the upper house are of the same opinion.
Well, that is the exchange in Parliament. And speaking of Parliament, a parliamentary panel has called for a review of post-retirement postings of judges to ensure impartiality. The panel has also called for more regional benches of the Supreme Court, saying the apex court is now very Delhi-centric. Ashmit joins us now with more details. Ashmit, take us through what the parliamentary panel has said and what it has suggested in terms of the road ahead.
Well, some interesting findings, and if we can summarize, there are 5 key takeaways from this 133rd report of the Parliamentary Standing Committee. Number one, as far as the committee report is concerned, it calls for a review of post-retirement jobs, especially government jobs for judges. That is something that the committee feels is important to ensure impartiality. Currently, we have many judges who are going for post-retirement roles, so whether that's Justice Gogoi as an RS member, whether that's Justice Arun Mishra as the NHRC chairperson. So there are judges being appointed, and this practice needs to be reviewed. That's the first big takeaway from this 133rd report. The other is the Delhi-centric nature of Supreme Court. Currently, there's only one bench of the apex court. It sits out of Delhi, and that, the report says, is a challenge because there are language barriers, the task of flying for litigants to come here to Delhi, to find lawyers, the travel cost, the accommodation cost, all of this, the report says, increases the cost of justice and therefore backs for 4 to 5 regional benches of the apex court. That's the second key takeaway. The third is vacations. We have summer vacations of the Supreme Court as well as the high courts. This issue has been debated a number of times and has been raised once again. Here what the committee says is that there are a large number of pendency cases. There's a huge amount of inconvenience caused to litigants because of judges going en masse for vacation for 2 long months, and that is simply not tenable. They've instead backed Justice R.M. Lodha's view on the subject, which is that judges should individually take leaves, not en masse, not together, not have vacation benches. Finally, the Parliamentary Committee also says disclosure of assets. The committee seeks to point out the irony that the Supreme Court is the one that directed the MPs and the MLAs to disclose their assets, but there is no binding order as such against judges. There is no requirement for judges to disclose their assets. Here the committee says the government should go ahead, propose a legislation, come out with a legislation that requires judges to disclose their assets, their annual property returns. And lastly, point number 5, the committee believes it is important that there is sufficient representation of various classes of society, and therefore requests the collegium to nominate more names from SC, ST, OBC communities, as well as more women judges to ensure adequate representation.
All right, Ashmit, many thanks for highlighting the top 5 recommendations of the parliamentary panel. Let's see where this debate and this discussion heads. Thanks very much indeed. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news will continue right after this short break. Stay with us.